the New York Mets, another, I guess, a white knuckler last night. Adam Rubin covers the Mets for ESPN New York. Kind enough to join us for a couple moments. And Adam, good to catch up with you, my friend. How you been?
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, it was an exciting game last night. White knuckler is a good way to describe it.
Well, I mean, if you're a Mets fan and you're watching Familia, I mean, at times he's just flat out lights out, but then he's probably got to give you some palpitations, especially in that ninth inning, shutting the door with the bases loaded and no outs, and they get the big double play. And, it seems like the Mets, though, from last year, playing the Cubs right now, they've kind of owned the Chicago Cubs, and they have their number. And I'm just wondering, the first thought I have is, you start to say to yourself, when the season started, everyone banked on the starting rotation. It was a given that they were going to give you 6-7. They were going to be that catalyst to ride the Mets back into the postseason and the World Series. And all of a sudden, you got the issues with Matz, Syndergaard, and then Harvey. How taxing is this going to be going forward for that starting rotation?
Well, Logan Verrett is going to start in Matt Harvey's spot for the foreseeable future, including Friday in Miami in what's become a big series with the Marlins leading the Mets by a game in the wild card. So certainly the depth is not there that was last year. If you remember last year in the postseason, both Bartolo Colon and John Neese were put in the bullpen because the Mets had so many starters. Now with Matt Harvey having undergone the thoracic outlet syndrome surgery on Monday, ends the season. There certainly is Neese obviously is gone, although that's not necessarily a loss. They're obviously a lot thinner right now than they had been, and hopefully Zach Wheeler comes back later in the year. Late August, I think, is the target for him, and he gets plugged into that rotation. But certainly the margin for error with the rotation is not quite what it is. Matz is pitching with a bone spur in his pitching elbow that's going to need to come out after the season. They hope with anti-inflammatory medication he could get till the end of the season. So certainly there are some issues. Syndergaard's velocity was much better yesterday than his last start before the All-Star break, so I think some fears were calm there. But certainly there are a lot of issues swirling around right now.
I'm just wondering, with the trade deadline approaching as well, it seems like they could be in the market for right-handed relief help. I mean, do you see the Mets making any type of move to acquire anyone?
Yeah, I mean, if they do make a move, and they may do something not dynamic, or gigantic like last year with Cespedes, but they may do something. It will probably be pitching related, more likely the bullpen than a starting pitcher. You look at Addison Reed's been very, very good in the eighth. Familia has walked some tightropes, but he's 49 for his last 49 in the regular season in saves. So, but they could use one more late inning guy, a righty. Jerry Blevins from the left side has been very good. So I could see it there. I could see a kind of a starting pitcher so that they don't need to use Verrett, but I think more likely the relief pitcher is the direction they go if they do get somebody.
They get Conforto back as well, rejoin the club on Monday after a brief stint in the minors, 3-week stint in minors. It looks like he'll return to their primary center fielder. And, of course, we all know with Cespedes expressing a desire to probably play left field for the remainder of the seasons. I mean, I don't foresee that being an issue at all, but that's certainly they can certainly use Conforto's bat as well back in that lineup, yes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was in a big slump before he went down. I think it was about 7 for 65 before he went down to AAA. He hit 340 in 16 games with Las Vegas. They brought him back. Cespedes actually is not in the lineup today against the Cubs. It's an afternoon game. That quad is still kind of barking a little bit, not 100%. He missed more than a week with that injury. So they're going to give him today off, and Mets have a team off day tomorrow, so they're going to give him back-to-back days off. Which means Conforto's back in his normal left field today. But it's going to be interesting with Conforto. At some point in the near future, Terry Collins is inclined to use him in center field, which is a position he's never really played, at least definitely as a pro and even in college, not in a game. So it'll be certainly an interesting dynamic. Lagares is in the lineup today. Lagares will be in the lineup on Friday because the Mets face a left-hander in the opener in Miami. But at some point, as soon as this weekend, Conforto could be in center field, certainly next week, if not this weekend.
Again, 125 on a Wednesday edition of the warm-up right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Rich Quinones will take up to 2. Adam Rubin does a great job covering the Mets for ESPN. ESPN New York, again, the Mets are trying to clean up that series with the Cubs. Then they have a important series against the Marlins. It's funny because when I came on the opening monologue, I had to remind people out there, if you looked at the NL East standings, you would think the Mets were in second place. The Marlins caught fire of late. I think they won 8 out of 10, so you're right. That's going to be a very important series going forward for the Mets. I'm just curious, too. You look at Wilmer Flores. What does he need to do to just really insert himself in the everyday lineup? The way he's been hitting, too. He's been one of the most productive hitters over the last 5 to 6 weeks. I mean, how about Terry Collins giving him a regular spot in the lineup?
Yeah, he has 6 home runs in July, which I think is still tied for the most in the majors for the month. He is in the lineup today because some guys have days off. Both middle infielders have days off, as Gilbert Cabrera and Neil Walker. But, man, I'm sure it's frustrating for Wilmer that he can't get into the lineup on a regular basis. But once they brought in Jose Reyes, that kind of condemned Wilmer Flores back to a backup role. So I suppose of all the problems surrounding the Mets, it's a good problem to have, is that you have qualified people on the bench again who want to contribute more and just can't find the playing time.
One quickie on Reyes. How has he been received in the dugout? I mean, obviously, it always seemed like he yearned to come back to New York and play for the Mets, but how has he been received?
So far, so good. He's a very, I mean, you're not going to excuse what happened during the offseason with domestic violence allegation, but in terms of in a clubhouse, he always has a bubbly kind of upbeat demeanor, always smiling, and he's been received very well, at least from the parts we've seen. This was the right organization for him to come back to because obviously he was here for 12 years at the start of his career, from 16 years old until he departed as a free agent after, I think it was the 2011 season. So there's been a lot of turnover with the Mets in the Major League clubhouse, but certainly still he's a guy that if he was going to come somewhere and be well received, this would be the place.
2 more for you again. Appreciate a couple moments. I know we're tight on time. Just looking forward now, second half of the season, trade deadline. If there's a want and a need for the Mets right now at the trade deadline, what would be the want and what would be the need, if there was any?
Well, yeah, when we touched on it, but certainly one more late inning reliever would desperately help the Mets. I don't know if it's going to be like a Joe Smith type. I saw the Mets website throw that name out there today, but certainly someone like that, an accomplished late inning guy, not a closer, but an accomplished late inning guy would really help, because Reed and Familia have been asked to do an awful lot, and one more late inning arm would really help bridge the starting pitchers all the way to end the game. And
last one for you, and I know you when there's beat reporters and you guys are with these teams and you cover a team, you know the ins and outs. So I'm curious on this one. Do you ever hear any of the players kind of shake their head if Daniel Murphy's name's brought up? Like, are you kidding me? No, look, no one can sit there and say on the record they saw this coming, but he's having a monster year for the Nationals, and I get it, protection in the lineup, and maybe he's just hitting his peak, but do you ever hear kind of the whispers like, man, Murphy's having a great year?
Yeah, no, I don't hear any grousing with the Mets. I mean, obviously, in retrospect, letting him go was a mistake, and he's absolutely killed the Mets too this year.
Yes, he has.
But it was like like half his home runs and 21 RBIs, I think it is, or against the Mets. So he's been absolutely phenomenal against them too. So it's really been doubly troublesome for him leaving. Neil Walker got off to a hot start. Yeah. He had 9 home runs in April, but it's significantly cooled since then. I mean, this was really a financial decision more than anything. They made the 1-year commitment to Murphy, 1 year, $15.8 million qualifying offer, but obviously he wanted a multi-year deal somewhere else. And they have Dilson Herrera waiting in the wings to take over next year, and they want to keep the cost low at second base if they can, because they're going to have to start paying these starting pitchers a lot going forward. So there was a business decision. I don't think they believed that the power that they saw in the playoffs was going to sustain itself all the way into this year and at the level it is. So they made a mistake there. But Kevin Long is the hitting coach with the Mets, who really helped Murphy start pulling the ball more, start driving the ball out of the ballpark more than just rather be content slapping the ball the other way for singles all the time. So the Mets created a monster that they're now having to deal with. Yeah, and I'm just curious too, as you wrap it up, got about 30 seconds. Did you foresee this? I mean, going into this year, he's already got 18 home runs. His career high was 14 last year, and he hit 12 and 13 in his career with the Mets. But did you have an inkling, or is this situation where the lineup, maybe he's just due, maybe he's hitting it a stride, maybe he's a late bloomer? Well, he's as studious a hitter as there is, so he was going to get the most out of whatever his ability is. I don't think anyone foresaw. I don't know what he's going to end up home run wise this year, 25, maybe even 30. I don't think anyone foresaw that, but I think people thought that he would sustain a little more power, maybe in the teens and things like that. So he certainly caught everyone off guard with that. And I mean, obviously, at one point he was sitting behind Bryce Harper. Now he's sitting in front of Bryce Harper, I believe. Still, I mean that obviously helps with that protection too, but. He's been, I mean, I know the Nationals are absolutely ecstatic, and a 3-year, $37.5 million commitment is not that much. No, it's not.
You're right. I mean, if anything, you might be thinking to himself, oh, man, kicking himself a little bit. But no, he's a front runner right now for the NL MVP. It'll be interesting to see if the Mets have gas left in the tank really for that stretch run come in August. Should be interesting, too, because the way they close out the season, we were joking the other day on the air. You look at the Phillies. The Phillies are going to be a thorn in someone's side late to close out the year in the NL East, and could be against the Mets, could be against the Nats, who knows. But in any event, Adam, I appreciate a couple moments, pal.
Sure, my pleasure.
All right, you got to be well. Adam Rubin does a good job covering the Mets, ESPN New York.